there's a lot of war books, there's a lot of veteran books, there's a lot of history books, there's all that stuff. And, I'm watching this man with dementia and then telling these war stories and having it intertwine his love life. But I wanted to give little glimpses of who he was, what he experienced, what he went through, what he stood for, but also, what he did. Like some of it's very humorous. Some of it, he's this older man with dementia and he says some pretty out there things that are, pretty funny to some people. I'm sure I thought some of the stuff he said was hilarious. My mom might not agree as much because some of it does pertain to her. But yeah, I think I just wanted to give little glimpses. And I didn't want it to be, just like a bloody Private Ryan story or, like Lone Survivor. I wanted it to be really real and authentic with a little bit of fiction, but not so much that it lost its authenticity. Mainstream really good.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the I Didn't Read Your Book podcast. I am your host, Lutch, and today we are going to be talking with Timothy Robare about his book, The Story of a World War II Vet. So looking at the cover here, seems pretty standard for what the title sounds like this is going to be about. The Story of a World War II Vet. We are in a looks like a military cemetery. Is that how they say it? And of course the American flags. So not too much to really analyze here. I think this is the question is this fiction or is this nonfiction? So from what I understand, because I was talking to Timothy on Twitter, and from his picture, he didn't look like he was of the age that he would have been fighting. But maybe he had family members. Who knows? But yeah, pretty straightforward. I mean, I guess the question would be, obviously, just by the title, Story of a World War II Vet, doesn't necessarily say what side but the American flags make it, again, something that makes it relatively obvious that we're talking about an American World War II vet. So I guess not too much to analyze there. So let's dive right in and read the back of the book. This is the life of a World War II vet. His struggle with the war, with love, and with dementia. This story takes in real-life accounts with some changes and dives into small pieces of the life of an extraordinary veteran. Small chapters take glimpses into the veteran's life within different areas. Then down here, we've got a little about the author. I'll always include that if it's here. Born December 22, 1989. That's 25 days later than I was born. 1989 in Burlington, Vermont. Timothy graduated with a degree in writing arts from Plattsburgh State. His love for writing started as a young boy, writing lyrics and poetry, and then moved to short stories and plays until he began to read novels such as Uncle Tom's Cabin, which really inspired him on the impact novels can have. Writing inspirations range from Shakespeare to Hemingway to C.C. Humphrey and others. So, this is another case where I don't really that 100% makes sense to me. It's a story of a World War II vet, and we're going to be following this one vet in particular, and different areas of his life. So the beauty of when you're talking about things that are when it's straightforward, and I guess this is specific to nonfiction, because you kind of have to build, you have to build a little bit. You have to give some type of something for a fiction story to know what the hell the person's going to be reading about. But because we already have a frame of reference for what World War II could be like, what World War II veterans might have to say, that kind of stuff, then we don't really need this long diatribe on what we're about to read because we have that frame of reference. So that makes my job, at least from here, pretty easy, because I feel like I know exactly what we're diving into. So without further ado, let's bring in Timothy. All right, and there he is. Timothy Robare, is it?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. I think you are in what, probably almost 30 episodes now. You are maybe the first person whose name I got right on the first time. I'm terrible.
I'm glad to be the first.
I'm terrible with names. So yeah, we had just finished judging your book by its cover, as they tell us not to do, and reading the back of the book. And oftentimes that doesn't really give me much to go on because people are trying to be cryptic and this and that. But I didn't feel that to be the case with your book, with the cover, even with the title of Story of a World War II Vet. I think a lot of Americans would naturally think, that it's going to be from the perspective of an American, but that could easily be not the case. And so, having the flags there, and then the setting of the what do they call it, the military graveyard or cemetery or whatever it is,
Right.
that I think gave a familiar imagery in this way. And so then I was wondering, okay, are we is this, I'd seen your profile picture on Twitter. I was like, doesn't seem like he's old enough to have fought in World War II. So maybe this is so I was like, maybe maybe this is fiction, or maybe he has a family member or something. And so then we got to the back of the book, and you said that you were talking to one veteran in particular, and then the chapters are about different areas of his life. So who, I guess the first question would just be, who is this veteran?
So his name is Georgepeer. He actually died about 2 months before I published the book, unfortunately. But my mom worked for him as an at-home nurse, and I'm mostly a writer of fiction and fantasy, but I was sitting there one day because I used to go down and hang out, interesting man. And, he'd forget where he put his keys. He would forget his wallet. He'd forget where he is sometimes with dementia. And then one day he was just talking about Okinawa. And he was talking about this scene where he was, getting ready to run into these caves. And he was saying how the missiles were coming from him from behind, from our own battleships, from American battleships, like barraging the caves. And he was talking about, the fear of running into this dark cave. You don't know who you're stabbing. You don't know who's stabbing you. The chances of you coming out is limited. He was giving me the smells, the sounds, and like the look in his eyes was like he was there. And I was like, wow, I have to write this down, because what he was saying, what he was feeling. Yeah. Like, I'm looking at this man 5 minutes prior. He's like, I don't know where I am. And then 5 minutes later, it's like he's right there, and he's telling you the most vivid and intense story. And, you could feel it. It's what you want a book to be, really. You want someone to read those words and be able to feel it. And that's what this man is telling me, this man with severe dementia. And from that moment on, I was like, I have to tell this guy's story, because, he was old, and obviously there's not that many World War II vets. This is Valkyrie. There's not that many World War II vets left.
Yeah, they're running low, unfortunately. I mean,
right. So I was like, I have to get this story out, and some of it's fictionalized. I had to dramatize it, Hollywoodize it a little bit, but also, he never mentioned his love life. He actually mentioned his dog more than anything, probably his dog Molly. He mentioned her.
Heard that.
Yeah, I mean, he loved his wife. He had pictures of his wife and stuff. He didn't talk too much about her, so I had to make that up as I go. And some of his stories would be a little bit in and out. He'd go from being there to, all of a sudden being president again. So I had to kind of go back and forth and fictionalize a little bit of it and make some of it up as I went. But I utilized most of what he told me. I went down for, weeks to talk to him. And some days obviously were better than others. Some days he'd tell me stories like the one in the book about coming back from war and shooting this deer, and it didn't die. So he had to cut its throat and watch it die. And he never wanted to hunt again. And this is a man that went to war and killed however many people, and saw millions of people die. And this deer changed his life. Never wanted to
go. I little deer. Well, my cousin Vinny reference on. So it's a combination of, you know, what he told you and you kind of both filling in the gaps and then kind of sensationalizing it a little bit to make it more of a cohesive story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so and what, you know, what is what's the through line? Like, what's the plot of the book that you wrote? Not necessarily the plot of his life, but from what you took from it, from what you injected to become the story of a World War II vet. What is, you know, the tagline for that?
Man, I think what I wanted to do was just give glimpses. I wanted to give, you know, like you said, there's a lot of war books, there's a lot of veteran books, there's a lot of history books, there's all that stuff. And, you know, I'm watching this man with dementia and then telling these war stories and then having to intertwine his love life. But I wanted to give little glimpses of who he was, what he experienced, what he went through, what he stood for, but also, you know, what he did. Like, some of it's very humorous. Some of it, I mean, he's this older man with dementia and he says some pretty out there things that are, you know, pretty funny to some people. I'm sure I thought some of the stuff he said was hilarious. My mom might not agree as much because some of it does pertain to her. But yeah, I think I just wanted to give little glimpses, and I didn't want it to be, you know, just like a bloody Private Ryan story or, you know, like Lone Survivor. I wanted it to be really real and authentic with a little bit of fiction, but not so much that it lost its authenticity. That this, well, World War II in this specific event just clung to his memory and like his essence so much that he could recall every smell and scent and vision like it was nothing.
I bet I bet those types of memories are so visceral that it's gotta be like, you know, like it just happened.
Right.
Which I mean, you know, thinking about that now, I mean, it's you know, dementia is I don't have any personal experience with any family members, but from what I've heard, it's just such a hard thing to watch. But you know, then it brings up the question, well, if you are plagued by these horrible memories, is it kind of a relief to not really be subject to that for a little bit? That's
Right.
that's interesting. And maybe, you know, perhaps that's that played into his sense of humor.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with my great grandmother having like severe Alzheimer's, didn't really know anybody. But then I've seen it a few times throughout my life. And then I got to interact with this guy that his memories are everything. And some of it was funny just because he would be like, he'd lose his breakfast and it was right next to him. He wouldn't remember it, but he remember these wars, and he would, you know, he'd tell these funny stories. Like, I'm pretty sure I include a chapter in the book about his like turkey finger. He got this weird surgery thing and it was like a bone of another animal or something. I can't quite remember. It's been a while now. I'd have to refresh, but it was just like the way he was telling it was humorous. And I was like, wow, we go from, you know, this man with severe dementia, can't remember where his breakfast is, to, you know, war stories and smell and murder, to, oh yeah, this little surgery happened. He's like showing his crooked finger and laughing. And it's like, wow, like he's a character. He's like a real life character that you want to write about.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what are some, you know, some of the thing, you know, we were talking about, we all kind of have a frame of reference for at least the media presentation of World War II. So what are some even tiny things that you really wouldn't have expected or are drastically different from the mainstream narrative, so to speak?
I mean, I think, you know, mainstream really glorifies it. Obviously, it's a huge part of, you know, being an American. It's a huge part of our culture. It's a huge part of our history, really. Like, how much do you study it throughout school itself? You know, we don't learn the nitty gritty pieces. Like, we do to an extent, but we don't learn, you know, about these soldiers going into caves, just stabbing at each other, and then our own people blowing them up from behind just because. And we don't learn about, you know, like the finger. We don't learn about these doctors practicing this, you know, kind of out there medicine of using animal parts to reconstruct fingers and broken limbs and stuff. Yeah. And I mean, you can see it and you can read it in history books, but having someone there giving you their vivid description of being there and what it was, I mean, especially because there's so limited of them number wise left, it's totally different. And to hear You know, I mean, if you watch a World War II documentary or video, you see just a ton of people dying. It's just a ton of death. And this guy, you know, he made it back. So hearing his stories from being back and, you know, hearing what he saw there. And then, like I brought up the deer, like hearing him be like, I don't want to shoot anything again because of a deer. There's a guy that, you know, could have killed 300 people. Who knows? Like in their, like to their face. So
Very
it's just,
interesting dynamic.
I know, very, very different than the normal World War II or war stuff that you get in general. Very real, very raw, not necessarily patronized, and not necessarily war based. Like some of it is absolutely war based, but it's really the personal journey on a realistic and holistic level. It's really this man's journey from, you know, from war, going back to real life, a little bit of his love life before war that, you know, is mostly fictionalized, but, and then how he went back to life, and then what life was for him in these later years, which is almost still World War II, really, because those stories are what he is still, which is what's fascinating. Because with his dementia, it was a little bit of his wife, his dog in World War II. That's like pretty much what he was. So,
and so, like, meaning like that it consumes his identity.
right, like he still identifies as exactly. So there's like such this big thing that he still identifies as that's who he was. He was a World War II vet. That's, you know, he was proud of it, and it was his essence. It was him. I mean, it's a big part of everything that he did. So.
And so did you guys talk about like things like the differences between culture then and culture now, or were you more focused on what happened to you while you were there?
I really, a lot of time, I would prompt him a little bit, but he would just go. I mean, it was something he was passionate about and he loved talking about. And I think, you know, this is this older, trying to remember exactly how old he was, maybe 96 or something year old man that doesn't really get visitors that often besides my mom, who's his nurse. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of people weren't interested in his stories, maybe. I mean, this is he's from down the road from my grandparents, tiny little island in Vermont, definitely more cows than humans. So not a lot of interaction, doesn't go out of his house much because he can't drive. So I would kind of just maybe like prompt him a little bit and try to keep him on track sometimes, because, you know, he'd go off, but it was kind of me just doing these little things and just listening to him and just trying to take notes. And yeah, I mostly just let him tell me what he wanted to tell me, and I took it from there. And then some of the stories, I mean, are even from my mom. Like some of the funnier stuff is from her, because I wasn't always with them. I heard him say some stuff, but there's some funny chapters in the book that, you know, come from her experience with him. So it's not only my experience with him, it's also hers. Yeah.
So how long were you were you like, after you figured out, oh, I want to do something with this, I want to make, you know, write this down and turn this into something, how long were you you know, just speaking with him, gathering information before you were like, okay, cool, I think I've got the information I need and I'm ready to write the book?
Probably maybe 4 or 5 months, because really some days, I mean, dealing with a person with dementia, some days are nothing. Some days you got nothing. You got mood swings. You have anger, and, you know, you got this. Some days he doesn't want to talk. Some days he wants to sleep. So it really depends, because I could write down notes, but some of it's bits and pieces, and he'd, you know, get off in the moment and forget where he was, or I'd go down and he'd be like, oh, I don't want to talk today, that kind of stuff. And so I had to continually go back. And I was in college at the time too. So I had to continually go back and try to jot down pieces and connect stories and figure out the storyline. So it was 4 or 5 months of probably getting notes together. And then a couple months of trying to, you know, get a linear path going of where I can go, what I can do, connecting the notes, connecting his path to, you know, fictionalize it, but also to keep it as true to him as possible, to maintain that authenticity of who he was.
So is the fact that you're the author talking to the veteran, is that part of the story, or did you just take that information and you're writing a story about a World War II vet?
It's almost like I'm omniscient.
Okay.
Like, I feel like you could probably tell that I'm there, but it's mostly me being omniscient. It's mostly, you know, experiences of his, little glimpses of his stories that I'm just retelling. So it's not really like me being there.
Gotcha. And that's really cool. I mean, it's, we've mentioned a couple times that it's like there's not that many people who have these experiences left. And I think that was always a sentiment for whatever it was, of just, old people have wisdom, old people have stories to tell. And I kind of feel like that is less of a thing as of late, maybe in the last, the last generation or so. The respect for elders has kind of just, not that it's not there, but it's certainly not as baked into the culture as it once was.
No, we
Um,
definitely don't listen to our elders, as much. I mean, I'm Native American,
okay.
ethnic wise, and my culture is really big into elders or knowledge. They've experienced life, they've gone through all this. You go to them for wisdom, and I think maybe not everywhere in the world, but I think America has really gone away from that. We really don't question them, or like, oh, you old crazy people,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Oh,
And
the whole
really,
boomer meme. Like, okay,
right,
boomer. Yeah.
right, and these people have experienced stuff we will never experience, probably, hopefully, in some instances. Uh,
Sure.
so
Sure.
it was really. I mean, I'm guilty of that sometimes. Sometimes I've my grandmother was like, yeah, whatever, but she also had great stories too. So you know you're right. We don't always listen to these older generations and their stories, which is, in like my culture, people, the elders would be the ones that would tell the stories. People would get around, I mean, back in the days, fires, and still today, like bonfires and everything, and they would tell the stories.
That's a that I guess because of that looking back even further before the advent of like written language, like going all the way back, then the oral storytelling was the only way that people learned about this stuff. And I think just as time has gone on, it's like, yeah, I'll Google it or whatever. And I don't well, what would you say to somebody who would be like, yeah, or to bring Saving Private Ryan back into it? They're like, yeah, I saw Saving Private Ryan. What do I need to read this shit for?
I would tell them it's authentic. I would say if you're interested in someone's actual story and what they went through and what they went through afterward, and you really want to see like little glimpses of their whole life, because it's not thick, it's not huge, it's not lengthy. It's just like these little flashes. It's almost like a flash forward, like when someone says you see your life before your eyes when you die. It's almost what this is in this book. So I would tell someone, it's not your normal hero book. It's not your normal war book. It's this specific man went through all this. He experienced these things. This is his life. And even though some of it's fictionalized, I would say you're reading an authentic version of what this person that, sacrificed so much, stood for so much, did, and what he went through and struggled with after. So it's not only, war and psychology, it's, health and psychology, it's romance and war. It's, it's a whole life. It's what we go through in a book. I mean, not what we go through war wise, but
Right. And so, do you think that part of the just, I don't know, the fact that we don't live in that type of world where wars are being fought. I mean, even though World War II, except for Pearl Harbor, wasn't happening on American soil,
right.
even still, there was a lot of sacrifices that the population had to make, and it was very apparent what was going on. And you would think that with all the technology now, that stuff that's going on in Syria or that's going on in Yemen or it's going on in Ukraine right now, like I feel like people are even more removed from it now when we have direct, like, we don't, as much as the stories that are in this book are valuable because of who they're coming from and how, like, it's his own experience being there. We can also now see somebody, again, take Ukraine, they're taking a video of whatever, but that doesn't really hit in the same way of talking to somebody who has been through one of these wars in the past and then has come back and survived. And it's
Right.
I wonder. I wonder. I mean, maybe it's just that there's so much out there that it's hard to really nail down what is even true and what is useful to the context of understanding what's going on. But I don't know. I think we've, again, that same type of reverence for elders. I feel like the severity of war kind of feels like it's brushed under the rug. Do you
Yeah, it's
agree?
almost like we've lived in so much war and seen it so much that it's kind of, it's like the equivalent of going out and butchering your meat and eating it, or going to the grocery store and getting it. Like, you don't, when you go to that grocery store and grab a chicken breast or whatever you grab, you don't think of the life that it came from. When you go out and do it yourself, you do. And it's almost like, these videos of Ukraine, first of all, we don't even know where they're from, what they're doing, who's putting them out there. They could be from, 2015 for all we know. So, and it's a barrage, right? You're getting these barrage of videos, and there's this and this, and it's all over social media, which is all in your face. And you don't know what to make of any of it because it's a constant flood.
There's like an
Whereas,
overload.
this story is directly from, someone. It'd be like going to Ukraine right now and talking to someone that just had their school shelled and they're hiding out. Or, like, we can listen to the stories of Anne Frank and stuff, but there's nothing quite like being there and having her tell you it.
Right. That's a good example. And I'm wondering if, the fact that we have so much to distract us it plays a part in it too. And again, just getting back to this idea that, I'm sure what's in the book is there's a lot of wisdom, just that's, old people are wise and people who've been through shit are wise. But there is, I'm trying to put my finger on it, but it's almost like people these days are maybe they're along with the barrage of so much information about what's going on here and there and there and there, and it's just like I can't care about everything. And
Yes,
then
the sensitization.
yeah, and then the fact that we have so many distractions that it's like you can go through your whole life and not even worry about any of this stuff that's happening right now because there's so many, you're so far removed from it. Just like the what you were saying with the meat, that you're so far removed that you don't need to grapple with those concepts. And
Right.
that's I wonder how much that really is affecting just the culture at large. Because
I would
again,
say a lot, personally. I would say a ton. I mean, I grew up, I, went in the army, I had family in the military and everything. And,
thank you for
you
your
learn
service.
all this, you hear all this, you see all this, even from a young age. We're brought up in these war movies and these war shows, but there's nothing that's really struck me other than hearing it from people. And, I've read a few books that, were pretty powerful, but reading in school, you just hear it like it's almost like, oh yeah, you take the test, it's this, but it desensitizes you because you're not, respecting it, or it's almost like it's not real. It's almost like it's
Right.
there.
That's a good way to
And
put it. Yeah.
right. And hearing it from people, seeing it in their face, hearing their emotions, and knowing what they actually really went through is a lot more powerful.
I wonder how that could I'm wondering why that you would think that something like that would be like, you and I are agreeing that this is the case, but yet still there's that disconnect with people not really caring. And I guess, it does have to do with cultural shifts. Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned that you were Native American. Is that a big part of your identity personally?
Personally, yeah. I mean, this flag right here is Native American equality.
Oh, cool.
It's a big part of who I am. It's a little confusing sometimes, growing up off a reservation and having friends on reservation, and tribalism still exists today. Tribes very much, still some don't like each other, and there's a lot of issues, and the whole culture is basically realistically been almost fully destroyed. It's very, very limited. almost very exclusive now. I actually, one of my best friends out here where I'm living currently in Denver is from the reservation. He's half native, and we have a lot of, even though I grew up off reservation, we have a lot of similar things that we've gone through, which doesn't make any sense because we're from opposite parts of the country. And he grew up on, I grew up off, and we still have, these things that tie us together, which is, what we really bonded over. And we have a strong friendship because we went through all these similar things, even through totally different means. I've always identified as it quite a lot, and I've always loved it, but it is very almost convoluted. It's almost glorified now in the recent few years. When I grew up, I went on a date when I was like 17, and I went to go to this girl's house, and her dad answered the door, and he had this giant Colonel Custard, whatever that battle is, I forget all of a sudden.
Custer's Last Stand, was it?
Yeah. He had like this huge, like massive, like this whole wall, one of those giant like painting things. And I was like, whoa. And he's like, he had like a mustache, everything. And I was like, hey, I'm here to pick up Ashley. And he was like, are you native? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you're not allowed in my house. And I was like, what? I was like, whoa. And he was like, I don't like your kind. And I was like, I should have been warned about this. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's crazy.
Yeah. Where was the warning from her? Jesus.
I know, that's what I asked her. She's like, oh, I forgot, I didn't think about it. And I was like, oh, it's kind of important, but I didn't really let that bother me. But
what part of the country are you from?
I'm from Vermont originally.
Vermont. Wow, that's I guess there's assholes everywhere, but Jesus Christ.
That was in New York. So I'm from the North Vermont. I'm not far from Canada, and I'm from this little island, and there's a ferry to New York and a road. So I was over in New York all the time because it's right across the lake and a little more to do. But yeah, it was pretty mind-blowing. But now it's almost like the last 5 or 6 years, it's almost like Indigenous people are like glorified almost. It's been a very strange shift to see personally. And you do get these people that are like, I'm 1% native, or you kind of get these people that right. And I'm for people doing whatever they want. You do get people like getting all these dream catchers and stuff tattooed, which is very important to native culture, and it's non-native people, so it's kind of weird. But you see like a lot of the support all of a sudden, you had things like Standing Rock where natives were getting blasted with ice cold water. My friend that I was talking about actually was there, and nobody cared until like fully white Americans went and started supporting, and then all of a sudden the media was over it. But now nobody remembers it or cares. And you go through a reservation. I just drove through the Sioux reservation in South Dakota, I believe, outside of the Badlands. And, I drove and saw it with my own eyes, and I was like, it's, they're living in super impoverished areas, and, they were given pretty terrible land overall. So, I've always identified as it, but actually being able to have friends from reservations, and I used to go to a reservation a lot anyway, the Algonquin one, but having friends in the reservations and, knowing what they went through and seeing their struggle, and actually visiting reservations and, seeing what they go through it's always been a part of who I am, but I think it's become a bigger part of who I am. I'm only half. I talk about it in one of my blogs, because we're called half breeds a lot of the time. Like on reservation, my friend is even called half breed. And, I've been called it multiple times and everything. So I kind of talk about it. I kind of, joke around about it because there's a line of, sensitivity and humor. Sometimes you got to take things as they will.
Yeah, definitely.
But I never really minded. But it was interesting seeing how much more it affected him, because his own family did it to him too, because a lot of them were full, and then he was like one of the mix. So, just I think it's become more of who I am, and I almost become more prideful of it, because growing up in Vermont, it's beautiful. Vermont's like a safe haven. It's heaven. The difference is there's not really a ton of culture. So, even being native or whatever is almost, there's a thing in Vermont. I went to this panel it was mostly a black panel. It was a black gentleman, and it was like four of them, four people, one black gentleman. He got up and he was talking about like color blindness and race blindness, because Vermont, everybody's like, oh, everybody's equal. But he was like, yeah, we're equal, but I'm still Black. And I want you to recognize I'm Black, just not, judge me for it, not focus on that I'm Black, but recognize me as a Black man. And it's interesting because people in Vermont, they try to ignore differences. They want everybody to be like, included. But when you're doing that to, the heightened extent of we're all the same, like we don't see color, that's a problem to some people because, we have culture. Right. There's Nepalis, there's Somalian people there. There's other people that are like, no, like we're equal, yes, but I want you to recognize me for who I am and recognize, my culture or who I am, or, you don't have to ignore it. Just there's a difference between ignoring and hate. So,
oh, for sure, for sure. And you mentioned how like recently it's become like more of a thing. From the outside, it looks to me like the indigenous support is almost like tokenization, and it's like, oh, let's use this to make to virtue signal. And it, like you talked about with Standing Rock, it wasn't about the concept; it was about the optics. And it wasn't until the media had something to go off that that anybody cared. How, and this might be feel free to pass, but I would love to hear your opinion on how you feel that compares to like the conversation. Like you said, recently it's been more inclusive of other groups, but traditionally it's always been the Black experience that was the one that was different from the American experience. And like with you experiencing the types of things, the types of discrimination and stuff that you did before it became popular and cool and whatever to stand up for yourself and be proudly Native. Did that rub you the wrong way? Did that feel like, well, like, hey, we we're it's not just you. Like, how did you feel about all that?
I think, as far as humans go in general, we all have these different experiences and we're all more prone to ours. We're not always as open to everybody's as we maybe should be. I can say, right now I'm a little bit pale, just getting over winter and everything, but there was times, back home I lived right off the border, and there's an interstate that I used to cross to go to my friend's house, who was a white guy. And the Border Patrol stopped me one day, stopped me multiple times, but one day they like stopped me, held me against a car. And this was the middle of summer, so I was, darker and everything. And they thought I was an immigrant. And they asked my friend 2 questions, asked me like 40. And he was like, we go to high school together. He lives right there. And they're like, oh, we don't need your like input. Like we're questioning him. They asked me like my address like 15 times. I experienced that a few times. So for me, that experience might be different than someone else's. I do think knowing other Natives and knowing my experience and knowing other Natives on reservation, I do know, a lot of them feel voiceless. A lot of them feel like it doesn't matter what happens. And it never really has since American history has begun. How many tribes have been shifted? How many tribes have had land stolen? Sorry. How many tribes have, almost been destroyed, and how many have because of what other people want? Because, a lot of Native belief is you don't own land, and that's very different than what we live in modern day. Right. And now, a lot of them are stranded on these terrible areas, and nobody cares about the rampant alcohol issues. Nobody cares about the means of living on the reservations. You can go to them and even look. Maybe not the, the big ones with the casinos and everything, but the actual everyday ones. I think, everybody wants a voice, right? Everybody wants to be heard. And you have, all these different groups. You have, everything from minorities all the way through everybody. They all have, we're all in these little segments, and we all are shouting, into the abyss almost, because it's all getting mixed. And, media especially picks and chooses what they can use, for whatever reason. And I don't know all the reasonings of what every news or what every social platform is going for. Well, right. Yeah. Mostly money and views, but it's almost like we're throwing in the abyss and they're picking out what's important. And, there's I did have this, when I first started on Twitter, I actually had this conversation that was a huge argument.
So sorry to interrupt your podcast experience. I just want to remind you, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And if you really love it, there's some support links in the description. I would love if you could help out the channel. And back to the show.
And this person was going on a rampage on me, and he was like, you know, you're Native, you should feel this way. And I was like, are you Native? And he's like, no. I was like, okay, what are you? And he's like, I'm white.
Welcome to Twitter.
Right. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, you're telling me how I should feel as an Indigenous person, and you're not an Indigenous person. How can you speak for me? And, you know, he was telling me, his exact words were, I want to be a hero for the world. And I was like, but you're not doing that because you're not listening. And, you know, it's just this ridiculous fight. And I was like, nobody listens. Nobody wants to listen. Not we all, but so many people have this pre-made belief of what they want, and that's it. And you can tell them everything you want, and it just, you know, goes out.
They care more about being right and having their view that they've decided is right intact, rather than actually seeing, oh, maybe I can learn more about this. And if you really wanted to be that hero for Indigenous people, then you would be acting differently. You don't want to be the hero. You want to be known as the hero for Indigenous.
Yeah, you want the title, but you don't want what actually goes along with it. And, you know, for me, and actually for my friend here, we go through a lot of the same stuff because, you know, media portrays all Natives as, you know, long-haired and dark and, you know, fierce and whatever. And, you know, when it's winter, not all Natives are dark. And, you know, my friend's actually pretty pale in the winter too, gets dark in the summer. And I, you know, get darker in the summer. And I lived in South Carolina for a bit where I was, you know, really dark all the time. And people were constantly like, oh, you know, are you American? Are you Arab? Are you Spanish? And all this stuff. And I got it all the time. You know, moving there, I was part of the culture of, you know, of other people that were darker. I was, you know, one of my good friends was mulatto, and a lot of my good friends were Black, and I had some Latino friends, and I didn't actually have a lot of white friends, which was the opposite of what I had at home. And, you know, I was considered colored there by everybody. And I moved out to Denver, where it's like a mix. Like some people are like, hey, what are you? Like my Arab friend at work is like, hey, are you Asian? What are you? Are you Latino? And you get that a lot. Some people here get offended. In Europe, people ask each other what they are all the time. So traveling through Europe, everybody's like, oh, what are you? Where are you from? And I never, you know, it doesn't bother me. Depending on how it's done, obviously. The way you say things.
Oh, yeah.
Context obviously is much different. So it's funny going, you know, it's almost like I don't have an identity sometimes because I try and people automatically look at me and judge what I am I can tell them whatever and they might not even believe it half the time anyway.
They have their mind made up.
Right. So some people will be like, oh, you're white, you're Asian, you're Latino, you're Arabic. And it's just like all these different things. And it's like, I can just tell you what I am and you can take it or leave it. It's fine. You know,
yeah,
I didn't choose my genetics.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. As you know, my parents are from the Caribbean, but my ancestry is pretty evenly split, Indian and Chinese. And so you know, everybody has their guess, and I just get that question all the time. And like, yeah, I think you're spot on in saying that, like, people will get offended by it. I didn't know that was a more common thing in European countries, but it makes more sense because there's more places to be from. Right. But yeah, I mean, it always rubbed me the wrong way, but never, like, I'm not gonna cry about it. But I think it's not so much because people are genuinely interested in who you are, but they're asking to put you in a box.
Yeah, they want a profile.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you can tell that is what's going on, then it's a little bit different than like, oh, you're an interesting person. I would like to learn more about you and your past and where you came from.
Yeah, I mean, I was serving tables once at Applebee's in Vermont, and I'd actually just got back from Egypt. And, you know, everybody in Egypt some of them thought I was Arabic. I had a big beard at the time. I was dark. I actually showed my friend at work. He's like, oh yeah, you look like you're straight up from. And, you know, so they'd been like, oh, are you Greek? Are you Italian? What are you? And all that stuff. And I came back home, and there happened to be this table that I knew was Egyptian. I could tell by the way they looked. And they were staring at me. They weren't my table. So I finally walked up. I said, do you need something? And they're like, are you Egyptian or are you Greek? What are you? And I was like, I'm neither of those. And I told them, like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And I was like, is that why you're looking at me? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So sometimes it's kind of funny. In South Carolina, I had people come up and be like, "Hey, do you speak English?" Which, is much more rude. So I'll take,
Yeah.
"What are you?" over, "Hey, are you, do you have any English speaking in you?"
And it's always I wish that it was, the latter form of the question. And too often it's the former. But because I feel like, especially in America, where we do have a lot of mixed people, mixed heritages, and just people from all over the place. Like that can be an interesting conversation, but it
And
it
right.
never it never really seems to come out right.
No, we lack, I think in America, specifically in my experience now that I've traveled so much and been everywhere, we really lack communication, which is, why this book was important to me, because this guy's communicating to me really well and we're going through this and I want to communicate that message, right? And I feel like, on a daily basis, we interact with people and we're like, wow, we as a culture don't communicate. And we don't, a lot of it's superficial, right? Like you said, people will
Right.
ask you, they don't care, they don't want to know. It's more of like, I'll politely ask you, but I don't really care.
Right.
Or I want to judge you based on it, not let me see where you're from. Which,
Right.
why this book is, you asked me earlier, why is this book different? And this book is different because it's where he's from, it's what he did, it's his real story. Whereas, like if someone asked you, "Hey, where are you from?" or, "What's your background?" It's like, "Oh, I'll give you my background, I'll tell you everything you want to know." But it depends on how they ask. So if you're genuinely interested, great. Like I would, if someone asked me about this book and they weren't genuinely interested, I'd be like, "You don't even care."
That's
But
a
if
good
they,
point. Because
right,
definitely
if you
somebody could
wanted
just be
to,
like, "Oh, yo, it's you," and I mean, people do it with the podcast all the time. Like, yo, what's your podcast about? It's like, do you care, or you just want to have a reason to be like, oh, that's stupid? Like,
right? Do you want to fight almost? Because that's,
exactly, exactly.
I joined
And
Twitter because of agents and because I wanted to network a little bit. I wanted to meet people, and I've met some great people. Like, I met you, and I'm on here, and that's great. I met a few other authors. I've met some editors, and I've met some really great people. But you do get that, that constant influx of people that want to fight, people that are provoking, people that want
vitriol.
out there, right? And you get those in real life too. You get people that come, you're a retail worker. You get people that come in and just want to, they're having a bad day, and they're like, "You know what? I'm going to take it out on you," or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and mediating those people can be difficult sometimes. It's something you learn as you grow, right? You just, people come in and out and you're like, "Oh, you can be here, you're nice, and I'm not going to give you my time."
Right.
Which is
Right.
something that we all, I feel like, struggle to learn in American culture because communication's not always there.
Yeah, definitely. And I was actually just kind of having a similar conversation with my cousin the other day, and he was asking like, why do I care to like engage with people online and get into arguments and stuff? And like, I definitely, there was a period where like I was getting a little bit too into it and like caring a little bit too much.
Me too.
But taking a step back, like if I, I'm not saying that I'm gonna like save the world or anything, but like if I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson, and it's like make your bed and clean your own room. And so it's like if I can talk to the people around me and at least put the ideas out there, not even necessarily trying to convince anybody to think like me, but to just put the ideas out there, then at least I'm doing my part.
What's like a
And
starfish poem, right? Are you familiar with the starfish poem?
I'm
The
not.
guy's like walking down the beach and the other guy comes and is like, so he sees the guy like throwing starfish back in the ocean, and he comes on the beach and he's like, "Hey, why are you doing that?" And the guy's like, "Save them," or whatever. I haven't read it in a while, but it's still in my brain. And he goes, "Well, you can't save them all." And he like throws one back and he's like, "Yeah, but I saved that one." So it's kind of, it's the basis of rhetoric, right? Like I took a class in rhetoric, and there's healthy debate and unhealthy, but the whole concept is to exchange ideas, to, your truth is your truth, mine's mine, theirs is theirs, whoever's, but to exchange those ideas is how we formulate how we think. And, you can talk to a very ignorant person, a very open person, but as long as you say, and respectfully, right, it's something that we all should learn, and that seems to be also missing a lot in culture the last few years, is respectfully engaging one another. And like you, I got in these, I was getting heated arguments. And I started realizing it was playing on my psyche, right? I was becoming, like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to argue with this person, which isn't the person I want to be. I have no problem properly debating,
Right.
but when it starts coming to insult stuff, I'll back out. But, you want to exchange those ideas. You want to be like, "Hey, this is what I think. This is why I think." Like I'm, a mix of, spiritual from my native side. And then I grew up in a Catholic household, but I'm not Catholic. I do follow some Christianity still. And I mix two and it's confusing, but I don't, I wouldn't go to someone's door and be like, hey, have you heard about Jesus? But, if someone asked me, I'd be like, yeah, I'll tell you, but I'm not gonna, push you into believing it. And I ask, my friend that's from Libya at work, I ask him about, his beliefs because I'm curious.
Right.
And I think that's what we need to learn is, we can be curious and ask, and you don't have to believe it. You don't have to, accept that it's someone else's belief, and, you can talk about it. And if you don't want to hear about it, just be like, I'm okay. And I think that's where that we have to come to in this culture specifically. And as people, I would hope that, everybody could, but obviously it's not how it works. But
well said. Well said. So I want to touch back on, you were talking about your friend who lived on reservation, and you were mentioning the conditions of the some of the reservations. But can you dive into a little bit more about like what is the how does that affect you, whether you're growing up on reservation or off reservation?
well, he's much more rooted in spiritual beliefs, right, than me, because he grew up in those beliefs. He grew up enacting them. I grew up learning the best I could. I was called, Papoose as a baby, which in my tribe means native baby, apparently. In little things, but I never got to be ingrained. It's like getting someone that's, Japanese being born in America and a Japanese person. And if that person's Americanized, they don't get that same culture. So I didn't get, I grew up in American culture. I didn't grow up in tribal culture, really. I was in and out of it, but never, there. I never got to go through the rituals. And there's rituals, like he can't talk about to outsiders because they're sacred. And, we have very different beliefs, different views almost. Some of my other friends on tribe have similar beliefs as me in the way of, like sports teams. There's like the Braves and all that. Like, some of them aren't necessarily named the best thing, but like Redskins, the football team. But, I had people call me Redskin growing up, and I didn't actually mind because I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm Redskin. I'm okay with that. Like, I owned it. You pick and choose your battles. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, same. I never had a problem with people, identifying as brown, or like, yeah, the brown guy. Like, yeah,
Right.
that's accurate.
Yeah, that's what I say. I'm like, yeah, I'm red and I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and now if you're gonna say, oh, because you're Redskin, then fuck you, or because you're brown, then fuck you. Well, now we're having a different conversation.
Right. So him, that's offensive. To me, it's almost like, so I read this document of getting rid of the Redskins, and this one tribal leader, I forget which tribe, was like, hey, yeah, maybe it's a little bit offensive to some, but it's almost all we have. We're clinging on to the few things that we do have culturally left, because we're not given so much.
Yeah, that's definitely, I don't I don't remember exactly the context, but I did hear about that, and it perfectly exemplifies like the early Twitter battle you were having with the person telling you what you should believe as an Indigenous person. It's like, well, hold on, like that's backwards. Like, why don't we and I think another similar instance that I think a lot of people can relate to is I don't know if you're a Marvel fan, but
of course.
The there's a big debate around what to do with T'Challa, King T'Challa, Black Panther, because Chadwick Boseman, the actor, died, and it was a lot of people in the industry were saying, oh yeah, we're going to retire the role to respect him, and and there was, I found this YouTube channel that was pushing this recast T'Challa thing. And the idea being that like Chadwick himself was very aware of the notion, the notion that the character is someone that is important in Black culture, and that it's fine to want to respect the actor, but by retiring such an important role to a certain demographic, it's backwards. It's like, hold on, wait, no, we need to recast this to keep this going. And then they bring up like James Bond, and it's like, they go one James Bond, and nobody Nobody
Right.
has any issue with it because it's just how things go. It's a role and it's a character, and there's no reason to bring that into bring the tragedy of Chadwick Boseman's death into the fictional escapist story. Again, just backwards thinking, and you hear that the family of Boseman said that Chadwick wanted this character to go on and flourish and all this. And
Especially
I'm
when he's so
not
influential, right? I mean, how
right.
many athletes and actors and stuff go Wakanda forever?
Yeah,
Because it's so pertinent. Although I will admit on that topic, I'm all for M'Baku becoming the Black Panther because I like him as an actor and his character is phenomenal. But yeah, right. Like, retiring his character out of respect to him, but then you're not respecting, the thousands in, the area that what you've created. You're almost like, yeah, okay.
yeah,
So it's almost like
right.
dispersing where you've come from, right?
Exactly. And yeah, that's so. I mean, yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I've got a number of guys that will do like these political panels every once in a while, and a lot of these types of things come up where it's like, the whether it's about racism or this or that, and it's like same kind of thing that we're talking about, where it's like you're presenting these ideas as if that you have to just represent this for those people, when it's like these people have mouths, these people have ideas. And I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase, the bigotry of low expectations.
No,
Like
actually.
basically just saying that, like, the hero, that guy, the hero of the indigenous people, the bigotry is not in that he was showing you, is not in that he believed that whatever he was telling you was correct, but the fact that you being an indigenous person yourself and him not, and him thinking, oh, I need to help this indigenous person get the right thinking. It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, it's
Right.
just another person and it's their own experience. So who are you to, so like when when we talk about certain things where we need to do this and that for the Black community, for the Latino community, or this community, or it's like it, and it's always coming from these powerful white establishments, and it's like, slow your roll. Like, you don't need, you're doing too much. You're doing
Well,
too much.
you got like, Gabby, the girl that her boyfriend supposedly killed her in Utah or whatever. Like, you got that, and
Yeah,
it's all over the media, right? It's, this one murder. Not saying it's not pertinent or, important, because sure it is. Of course, someone got killed. But I'd asked someone. I said, "Man, do you have any idea how many Native women get kidnapped and sold to sex slavery and killed on reservations? Like, it's all the time. It's all the time." And I've never once ever seen it on TV in my entire life. So the picking and choosing of how this stuff gets out there it's awful, it's sad, but there's only so much we can do, right? We're yelling into an abyss, we're trying, we're all struggling, we're all climbing in every facet of modern culture to get there. I mean, from podcasts trying to climb to get views over other podcasts, from an author trying to get your book noticed, trying to get reviews, trying to get an agent, to culture, to identity, to getting this information out there in every way you can. It's just like a swirl. It's one of those things. It's like
it's a
this.
lot.
Where do you pick? Where do you pin? How do you get there? What do you do? And right now you have to be so careful of everything you say, that no matter what you say, it's going to be picked apart by someone. You're going to get attacked by someone. You're going to get applauded by someone. So it's almost, how do you be true to yourself and also maintain integrity of your work, of who you are, and be proud of what you do, who you are, where you came from, and recognize that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a tough thing because it's like everybody, yeah, like you were saying, everybody wants you to have the right answer. And me personally, I've just to come to the conclusion that, like you said, everybody's going to pick apart. Nothing that you say is going to go over well with everybody, and everything that you say is going to go over wrong with somebody. So all you can do is put yourself out there and be authentic, and then the people who fucks with it will let you know, and the people who don't probably will also let you know. But either way, you've got your answer.
Right. I mean, I'm sure some people in my book are probably like, "Oh, that's a garbage vet book." Like, I want more war. I want more gore. I want action. I want to, see that stuff, and it's okay. Go get those books. There's a lot of them, but I'm sure there's also hopefully some people that have read it so far, and reviews I've gotten and feedback I've gotten is like, this is really cool. It's really different, and that's what you want to gear toward, right? Like being on Twitter, I started realizing, there's always going to be these fights. There's always going to be these arguments. Who do you associate with? Who do you give your time to? And it's the people that, sure, sometimes you want to give your time to the people that try to bring you down, because like, no, I'm not going to let you do that. But most of the time you want to put that energy in like a positive manner, right? You want to go forward and be like, yeah, you're fine. You can judge me. It's okay. Give me a 1-star review, do it. But someone gives me a 5-star review. Awesome. They loved it. And you're going to get that, right? Like you're going to get rated on scales in every facet of your life. And you're going to, get this hate and everything, no matter what you do. I mean, look at how many, even good people, like people that you look at and you're like, oh, you're a good person. Even someone hates them somewhere. So, someone's going to hate your artwork. Someone's going to hate your podcast. Someone's going to hate your flag or your shoes, everything from the smallest things to the biggest.
Everything.
So you kind of got to decipher what time you want. And I want people, that want a real story, that want to see something different and something inside of something to like my book. And I want, people that recognize me for the person I am and for my culture and, what I represent to like me. And sure, people are going to hate that, and I'm okay with that. That's fine.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a good way to look at it.
That's why I got a dog, right?
Exactly. What's your dog's name?
Valkyrie.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this is Morty over here. He was just eating his peanut butter thing. I usually give him an empty thing of peanut butter with some spread so he don't bother me. But I guess he's
mine feeds her paw, I think. She's over there.
Nice. Fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say now. What did you just say before?
It was about like the rating scale and how, I want.
Oh, yeah. So, I wanted to, do you have any type of demographic information on the people who are leaving these reviews? Because I'd be interested.
I don't. I only have what I've gotten, told to me. Like we just went to a B&B actually out in, out north toward Fruita, Colorado, stayed with this gentleman, got there really late, woke up, started talking to him right before I left, because I was going to Utah. And he happened to be a vet and a really, really cool person, was just asking me, what I did, what I do. And I told him, and he was like, oh, I'm going to buy your book, like write it down for me. So I wrote it down for him, and, he bought it and emailed me. Well, I emailed him and said, hey, just wanted to reach out to you and, say thanks for everything. And he was like, oh, I just bought your book. I just got done reading it. I loved it. I had a girl on Twitter messaged me and was like, wow, my grandfather was in World War II. He's been dead a while now. And this is amazing to hear another vet story and to see it done this way. And then I work at Applebee's out here right now serving too. And I have this group of women that come in. It's like 7 or 8 of them, usually older women, probably 50s, 60s. And, one of them bought all my books, and a couple of them about my books. And 2 of them follow me on Twitter actually. And they come in one Monday, the second Monday of every month. And, they ask me about my books. They, they love it. They talk about it. They give me feedback. And, so I don't have a demographic directly of who it is, but I get feedback from people, and it's people from so far from, my nephew even bought my book and when he was 19, all the way to, 70. And a bunch of people on my island bought my book because I was actually living there still when I published it, and I was working at a convenience store. So I bought a bunch of hard copies, put it out there, and was selling it for, pretty cheap, because I don't really care about the money as much. I mean, money is nice, don't get me wrong. If any agents want to give me a contract out there, I'll take it. But I want people to enjoy it. Like, I've never wanted to be someone about the money. I want to write something and I want people to love it.
Yeah.
So
and
I've had a bunch of different people, different ages, different backgrounds, come to me and be like, hey, I got your book. And sure, I don't know everybody that's downloaded it. I'm sure there's some people I have no idea. I've had a couple people on Twitter message me, and I don't know, I've talked to them a few times. I don't know. One of them has a picture of, Star Trek or something. I don't remember, but I don't know what they look like or how old they are or anything. But, I guess it doesn't really, to me, that doesn't matter as much as, just enjoying it. So, but it is interesting to see all the different ages and backgrounds and stuff that people can read this story and be like, oh, that's cool. I like that, regardless of where they're from or who they are.
Yeah, and the fact that you're getting a wide variety is, I think, telling in the sense that it's not, because like if it were only baby boomers who because they saw, like the one girl who was saying her grandfather was in the war and she didn't get to talk to him. And so if it was, people that had that direct connection to their parents, or if it was, more of any one demographic, then like that's cool to know that. But seeing that it has a very wide scope of enjoyment is really cool.
Yeah, I was actually afraid that, based off the title, right? Because we look at the title and we're like, that's not for me sometimes. So I was worried that only men would like it, right? And a lot of women have told me they like it, and it's great. I love that. I was almost surprised because I was worried that it'd be one or the other, like some things often are. And actually in college, taking this American Lit class, and I read Uncle Tom's Cabin for class, and I was like, it's one of my favorite novels I've ever read. It's so powerful. It's so beautiful. And I don't know if it's true or not, but my professor, who's an American Civil Lit, expert or whatever, was like, hey, this is actually geared towards pregnant women. Like that's who it's written toward. And it's written by a woman. And I was like, I was like, well, I'm not a pregnant woman, but I loved it. So I don't know. So it's cool when, you don't have a demographic of one specific thing where you get this feedback of, women and men and, different races and different backgrounds and different ages. Cause I don't know. I mean, it makes you feel good to know that people can identify with that no matter who they are.
Oh, definitely. So is there like some clattering coming from your end? I'm not sure if it's
yeah, Valkyrie, you stop chewing your bone.
Sorry, Valkyrie.
Come here.
Oh.
Oh, she's actually just chewing her toenails, but
yeah. So you said books. So I guess that means, oh, how cute. I guess that means that you've written more than one.
Yeah, I'm actually getting ready to publish a sci-fi one for fun, and my fantasy series is hopefully coming out soon. I'm sending query letters in. I'm on book 3 of that actually, but I'm sending it in for book 1. We have this with Valkyrie as a puppy, just a poetry book that I actually just got a review on yesterday, and got a very nice tweet about. Actually, like, not gonna lie, it's gonna sound a little bit probably dramatic, but I actually almost cried because I was like, wow, this, because I didn't even post it or anything. This person's like, hey, I found your book and I loved it. It was amazing. I was like, whoa. And then I just have this poetry book that I actually revamped, and it's just poems about love life and everything. And I'm actually trying to get together kind of a sequel for the World War II vet. For a while, I was trying to find Vietnam vets, but none of them are willing to talk that I can find. So right now I'm actually in contact with 2 Afghan/Iraq war vets, and trying to getting into contact with them and trying to figure out, not necessarily a sequel to this, obviously, because it's different, but
right.
Like a different war, different age, different era, but also try to relate it and do the same thing with, one of them offered me his journals and was like, hey, I'll send you like some of my journals that I wrote down and you can use them for whatever you want.
Pretty cool.
And most of them want to be anonymous that I've talked to. They're like, hey, just use fake names. Like, I don't want to be out there and whatever. And I'm like, okay, but they're willing to give me the stuff, and I want to be fictionalized again, but I want to be very authentic to who they are and do, a similar thing. So I have a couple things going on as far as larger books go, a couple projects in the mist, and then these 2 poetry books that I have put together over time.
I like the dog. I'm actually a full-time private dog trainer.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
You want to come train mine then? Because she's sweet, but she's also a pain.
Yeah, you gotta pay for the travel up to Vermont, but yeah. And the does the approach of fictionalizing these events that are these true events, does that, I would assume that gives you some room to breathe, to kind of make it what you want, without having to make shit up or to stray too far from the truth.
Right.
And because you're not saying this is a nonfiction memoir or anything, that's not expected. And so you get a nice little sweet spot of like, no, this is legit, but I'm gonna make it, palatable.
Right. Yeah, I get to walk that fine line of, what's too far, what's not far enough. Which I guess you do with pretty much everything that you write. But I get to get this basis, and I get to kind of run with it a little bit, play with it a little bit, tweak it a little bit to fit a storyline, and also do them justice at the same time, which is actually really fun. It's like me telling you a story in an interview and you go and writing about it almost, and being like, yeah, I'll take what he said and then kind of run with it a little bit a different way. And I can getting it from different vets in this hopeful series that I have coming up, gives me the opportunity to kind of if I want to intertwine these vets that might not have anything to do with each other, and kind of tweak it and give them something to do with it and make them related to and everything. I have the ability to do stuff like that, which is more fun while maintaining the truth and the aspect of who they are and what they went through.
I wonder how, because like I hear, wisdom, I have people in my life who have, who I listen to for this kind of stuff. No World War II vets, but I'm curious how I'm curious how you decided that making this into a book as opposed to like a short film or a play or a podcast or something. How did it just were you already into writing, or did you think about it and feel that this was the best medium for it?
So I had actually just graduated with my degree in writing arts. So I went to school and got my degree in writing, and I was actually working on the fantasy series that I'm still working on getting published. I was actually working on that at the time, and it was almost overwhelming. I was getting frustrated, and I was like, man, I need a break. And I was listening to him talk, and he told me, I was like, oh, this would be a great little project for the side to kind of, relieve me of some of the pressure I have on myself for this fantasy book that I'm putting together. So it kind of became just like this fun side project that was meaningful and beautiful, and something I just went and got $40,000 in debt for this writing degree. Like, why not do something good with it? Why not put someone's story that deserves to be put out there with it? So I thought, to the best of my ability, that I, with this degree and with this backing, I could, do that, and I could tell this person's story. And I thought it would be a really fun first real publish for me. I thought it was worth it. And I thought, it won't be too lengthy, and it'll be fun, and it'll be great. And I really wanted to publish it before he went, which I couldn't do, but I did get to give it to his family. His family actually all bought copies of it. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah. So that was really, really awesome. So yeah, getting my degree in writing, I was just like, I was working on this fantasy series, and, I'm not really a big nonfiction person at all. I mean, I enjoy nonfiction for what it is, but I really like creating, which is why I like walking the fine line of, taking these people's stories and changing them a little bit to what, I can do. But as far as that goes, I just thought, I just got this degree, and this is something that should be out there.
So, what brought you to go to school for writing?
So way back when I was born, for the first few years of my life, I actually wasn't able to hear. I used to apparently go up to the TV and turn it all the way up and just lean my head against it when people were watching it. So finally, I got brought to the doctors. I guess I don't remember any of this. It's just what I'm told. And got some surgeries, got some tubes put in my ears, got a couple more surgeries, and, went through 12 years of speech therapy. So I was always writing, even when I was young. I think I don't know if they're still existent, but my grandma had it like this little box, and it was like songs and, little poems I was writing even as like a 7-year-old, because I couldn't talk worth crap, honestly. I sounded like I just got hit in the mouth with a rock. So writing always came natural. Even in high school, I was exempt from public speaking because I couldn't do it. So I actually got to college, took public speaking, and loved it.
Oh,
and
cool. Good for you.
Luckily, my sister being there, because she would sit there and correct my language. I used to get mad. I used to be like, oh, you're so rude, so mean. And now I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful you did it.
Yeah.
Because now I, enunciate better for the most part, unless I get excited. And so writing has always come more natural. And I actually started going to school for genetics, because I love genetics. Huge passion of mine, really fun to me. And I was in English 102, I believe, my sophomore year. And it was like this, I don't know, the first month, maybe the second or third week, we had just written a paper and I had handed it in, and my professor, Miss Merman, came up to me and said, "Hey, why are you in this class?" And I was like, because I have to be. I needed to graduate. And she was like, "Yeah, but why?" And I was like, "I don't know, because my advisor said so." And she was like, "You're way above everybody in this class," which I never thought of in my entire life. She's like, "Your writing is way too good to be here. This class is more for, just normal college kids. Your writing is too good." Like, and so I asked her if I could send her a sample of one of my writings, and I sent it to her, and she's like, "I couldn't even do this as someone that's studied English my whole life.
Nice.
Like, you have a naturally gifted talent." And at the time, I mean, I still wish I could play in genetics a little bit, but I was taking anatomy and physiology, which I hate with passion. Zachary, hey. And I, at the same exact time I was taking this class, I was like, I hate this. This sucks. And she was like, "You're wasting your talent." So I was like, "You know what? You're right. I'm an optimist. I'll follow my dreams." And I love telling stories. I love writing, and why not do it? My debt, my bank account probably disagree a little bit, but I love it on a daily basis. I get to write and tell stories, and getting one review or getting someone that's like, "Hey, this was great," is honestly well worth everything I did. So I would say probably a lot of people got me to do it, but she was a huge influence. And also hating anatomy and physiology was probably a big influence too, I guess. Hey guys.
Agreed.
Stop. Getting rambunctious, sorry.
Not a problem. So what would you be able to do with genetics? What were you looking to do with that?
I actually wanted to be on the team of scientists that are at the time it was new. I think they're still doing it, but they are trying to clone saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoths. There's a list of like 10 creatures. So I really wanted to be, I was following those studies and everything, and I really wanted to be on that team. I really wanted to help recreate a saber-toothed tiger because I thought it'd be an amazing thing to be a part of.
Yeah, that'd be pretty dope.
Right. And, I've always found genetics interesting anyway. What drives people to think a certain way, what genetics benefit us or don't benefit us, and, what they mean to us, because we make them, we put sociological aspects and psychological aspects on our genetics, where we're from, what we do, what we look like, all that stuff. But just in general, like the real raw things in our genetics, like what makes us this way, what could we change to be this way? And, I was reading an article the other day about how many animals have gone extinct in the last 100 years, thanks to mostly human intervention. And I was like, wow, we could do something different. We have the ability and the possibility, as much as we all know about Dolly and how, kind of sad that was.
That was the cloned lamb, right?
Yeah. The one that like aged really fast and died. But, we have
Mm.
the ability to maybe right our wrongs, which I think we all want to do on a low level, right? We all want to,
Sure.
when you hit a certain age, you're like, "Hey, I want to go back in time and apologize to you." And some people don't even remember what you're apologizing for. But we have the ability to do that on a large scale, maybe it's our responsibility almost to clone, these animals and bring them back. So we killed them. It's our fault. So maybe we owe it to nature, to the earth, to these creatures to, save them and to bring them back. So that to me was this huge thing. And I was like, man, I want to be a part of that, be a part of the good, be a part of something that could change everything.
Really cool. That's I mean, I understand like the concept of genetics as much as any other layperson, but I mean, like I know that they have like CRISPR and stuff like that. But yeah, that's about the extent of my knowledge on that. So that's really cool. And I guess it must have been a hard decision to make to say, to pick a lane. Because with something like that, it's not really, I mean, I guess theoretically you could be part of that team and then kind of have writing as a hobby, but you probably can't do it the other way around.
I wouldn't have learned half the stuff I learned, honestly. Learning what I did in school, some of it was useful, some of it wasn't. But I wouldn't have gotten as far as I did. I wouldn't have learned as much as I did, or grown as much as I have in my writing itself. And also some of my professors were just, not all of them, but some of them were just incredible people that really, had these huge influences on me. one of the classes really influenced the fantasy series I'm even working on, indirectly, but what we were studying and what we were learning, did. And I got to get published in that class as well with a short story in another book. And I got to design the cover of that book. So that was a really cool experience too. And I got to work in a magazine, and, a lot of people don't always follow. I mean, genetics was my dream too, but a lot of us don't, follow our dream. And some of us don't even follow what we feel like we're called to do. And I'm not changing lives in the way of, creating these animals or saving them, but I can write about it, right? I can share these stories, and, I can make people cry or hope or learn or, teach them or hope to, at least. And I can put them in these worlds and give them these characters and hope that, they get something from that. So maybe it's not always teaching or learning or saving on a major scale, like I was hoping to do with genetics, but I can maybe do it on a minor scale and do something with that. So
no, I
don't want to watch your podcast and pick me up for genetics. Who knows?
Hey, I'm for it. No, I definitely understand what you mean. I went to school for psychology, and like 1 month into an internship after I graduated, I was just like, this is way too heavy. I was not prepared for this. I don't want to do this. I'm not the kind of person who can leave work at work. Like, this is fucking me up. And so I was just, serving tables for like 5 years trying to figure out what to do.
Well, that's psychology itself, honestly.
Right. And it was actually my mom who suggested the dog training, because she's not a huge dog fan, and I'm not like necessarily this huge dog lover as a part of my lifestyle. But I got my dog Morty, and so to her that was, oh, you love dogs, and she was like, why don't you try and doing that? And I was like, actually, that's a good idea. Because it's very, I mean, the fact that psychology, dog psychology and human psychology obviously are very different, but they're not, the basics are essentially the same. And a lot of times when you're doing dog training, you're really training the people to train the dog. And so it all really comes in full circle and allows me to, legitimately, there a lot of my clients, I come into the house and they're distraught, literally pulling their hair out because this dog is doing this, that, and the other. And then, within a couple months, I'm allowed to bring a level of peace and contentment to these people's lives that persists. And yeah, like you said, it's not the exact thing that I set out to do, but that's life, right? You do what you can, and as long as you've got your eyes open, I feel like things fall into place the way they should.
Right. And I mean, you're doing this podcast and shedding light on people you think deserve to have light shed on them, or at least given that opportunity. And that's, you're changing lives too. So that's cool. I mean, we all follow a path that, sometimes you got to go with what you're given, right? Not force everything, or not, sometimes you're like, oh, I want to do that. And then you do it and you're like, oh, that's not what I thought it would be. That happens all the time. So, we go with what we're given. And I felt personally like I was at this time struggling and against something I really wanted to do. And then this other person's like, hey, which I don't think I'm amazing for record, but she was really the first person, one of the first people to be, other than like high school people paying me for poetry or whatever, or be like, oh, your poems are good, to be like, hey, your actual writing is, well above. And having that said to me, I was like, oh, I never put a thought into it really. I always wanted to do it for fun, but I never thought about, pursuing it. Because I mean, in America, it's not like the arts are actively pursued. And if they are, you're generally indebted after. But
oh yeah. Well, yeah, that's a really cool way to look at it. Just I feel like even wanting to have any kind of impact on the world is not even a given anymore. Whereas at one point, like that was part of everybody's existential crisis whenever it happens, is that like, what am I actually doing? What am I actually accomplishing, and whatever. And then I feel like this generation has I'm 32, I'm a millennial. I don't know how old you are, but like from Gen X on, it was just like that sentiment of feeling like you need to have that intrinsic value and create that, it seems to be not that people don't have it, but it's just not as ubiquitous as it once was. And I mean, I guess that leaves more room for those of us who are trying to do something, but
Right.
I don't know how well it's serving the country.
Yeah, I mean, as a country as a whole, I don't know, but I'd be okay, if I die one day and I have 20 books out that are changing lives, or that are telling stories that I think deserve to be told and whatnot. And if
Yeah,
that's what
man,
it is. I
that's
change, like,
legacy.
right, and like the Starfish poem, if I save one, I mean, it's better than none, right? And that's kind of how
Exactly.
that's my whole philosophy of life, and that's my philosophy of writing. If one person likes it, then great, that's one more than the day before, and that's something I'm totally okay living with and by. Honestly, changing one life, doing one thing, having one person enjoy it. That's all I
That's
need.
That's beautiful, man. Well, I can't think of a better note to end on than that. I want to thank you for coming on. And we've got all. I'm gonna have your Twitter below this, and then all of your stuff in the description. But if there other books, websites, social media, any of that kind of stuff that you want to plug, the floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have TikTok, which is the same as my Twitter, author T Robare. And then I also have WordPress called the halfbreed.wordpress.com, which it's just a fun blog, essentially, get some steam out, talk about some of my stuff. And then also I talk about Jamie Lannister and stuff. So it's a little bit of everything. Yeah, one of my weird obsessions. We can get into that another day. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I try to stay off social media as much as possible. Obviously, Twitter is unavoidable and TikTok's kind of fun. So, and then my blog's just a little steam letter off and a little enjoyment.
Awesome. And like I said, we'll have all of that good stuff linked below. Definitely go check out this story of a World War II vet. I mean, I can't imagine that if the title sounds interesting to you, that it would be something that you wouldn't enjoy. Especially if it's going in knowing that it's not a Saving Private Ryan story and it's not about the blood and guts. If you care about this topic, I can't imagine that this wouldn't be interesting to you. So Timothy, thank you again for coming on the platform. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you sharing not just your work, but your thoughts on culture and all that stuff. It was a really cool conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me the opportunity and the platform. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. I will. Anything else for the people?
No, everybody be good and change some lives, I guess.
Beautiful. All right. I'm still sitting here trying to put my finger on how or why this sentiment of respecting elders and the wisdom of elders, and how it doesn't seem to be a part of American culture inherently. There's a lot in American culture, but that doesn't seem to be a part of it. And that being said, because we are, the melting pot, and we do have a lot of people with different cultures that do have that reverence for elders, I think the sentiment has not been foreign to us, no pun intended. But I think, like somebody like myself who, my parents were not born here. So respecting your elders was something that was bestowed upon me. And then like the meme, so to speak, it wasn't really a meme at the time, but the meme of like the kid that would be yelling at his parents like, "Screw you, mom!" And it's like, yo, I would never do that. I would get slapped. And I saw that a lot with my generation. And maybe it's like, because I was saying before, like Gen X on, but I feel like maybe because of the whole latchkey kid era of Gen X, there was a separation. And then when us millennials came along, we feel entitled to everything, and we feel like we know everything, or at least we did when we were teenagers. I mean, a lot of us still do. But I don't know. That's I'm just trying to figure out why that is, because it makes sense for Timothy being Native American descent and having that culture. Again, the as he said himself, respecting of elders is very much a part of that. And I think people definitely do have respect for, I guess, these glimpses that you know, these glimpses of wisdom. People will respect that. But I don't know. I need your guys' help. Let me know in the comments below. What pieces, what dots am I not connecting? And how is it that even though there's no real American value to respect your elders, there was always that sentiment. That was always something that we did, as far as I understand, until more recently, where we just don't care. And you know, the thing is to just, your parents get to a certain age, you chuck them in a nursing home, you visit them you know, once a month and on Christmas, and then they know the people at the nursing home better than they know you. And again, it's not everybody, and it's not, I don't even know if that's the norm, but it's ubiquitous enough that it's a thing. It's not a thing. It's a thing. And so how and why? I'm just not, I'm not putting it together. So I need you guys' help with this one. You know, Timothy has a very very cool perspective. I'm really glad that he thought to, I didn't get the guy's name. I didn't get the guy's name, but the veteran that his mom was working with, to get to realize that not only does this guy have some shit to say, but that it's unique in the context of how historically significant World War II is and was, and that the part of the value of elder wisdom is the fact that it is fleeting, and it is the fact that the guy's not here anymore. The guy's not alive anymore. So if Timothy had put off the you know, kind of just put it off for a few months, even, who knows if it could even exist? And who knows if I wouldn't be able to have this conversation? Who knows if you would be able to read this book? And who knows? It's something. Maybe just that maybe as I'm getting older and I'm moving from, you know, I'm 32, but as a millennial, we're really not adults until we're 30. So maybe the fact that I'm, you know, just growing up, and I'm really seeing a not a hard fork, but just a definite difference in the range and type of mentalities that that people have in Gen Z, and I think you know, just younger millennials. It's I don't know, guys. I need help. I need help. I don't know. I never claim to have all the answers. What am I missing? Plug in the dots, because I'm racking my brain, and I know that that was an important conversation, and I know that this book probably has some really just unique nuggets of wisdom. That, yeah, that's all. Well, but why isn't that a thing? Why isn't that a thing anymore? I don't know. I'm not doing well with the words today, but that's what happens when you know, you're thinking about stuff, and Timothy gave me a lot to think about. So I'm still thinking. So if you want to help me figure this out, help me you know, just get my own answers, or if you just want to let me know what you think, comment down below. What do you think has changed? Has it changed? Do you agree that things have changed? Do you think it's you know, something that we naturally do have respect for our elders? Do you think that we could, what do you think we can do to, shed light on the fact that that's changing and, reverse that. If you think we should reverse it, I mean, let me know. I thank you again to Timothy. Great episode, great conversation. I was really happy to not only get to talk about the wisdom of the book, but also having him as a Native American person who didn't grow up on a reservation, but had friends in reservation and very much identifies with that identity. And I didn't want to make it too much of again, if you want to hear me get into those types of discussions of, well, let's compare the Black experience and how America looks at the Black experience versus how what the Indigenous experience is and how America. If that's what you're interested in, hit up IDRYB Live. There's the playlist of all of the live panels I've done. That stuff is all culture and politics. And I'm not gonna, censor myself for anything, but that's because that wasn't really, what this was about. I didn't really push too hard. But he kind of, presented the question, like, do you kind of feel like, as another marginalized community, that sometimes it seems like there's one minority group that sucks up all the air of being the minority group. And that doesn't take away from, the struggles that this community experiences, but it changes the way that we talk about other people, the way that we talk about demographics in general, the way we talk about certain groups of people. And it's seeping into the way that we make legislation, to the point where, we're turning the clocks back. And I don't think that's a good thing. I don't want to get too much into what exactly I mean by that. If you know what I mean, then you know what I mean. And if you don't, then you probably don't care. If you don't know and you do care, hit me up. IDRYB Lutch, Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, I can always be found there. And thank you for tuning in. This was another episode of the I Didn't Read Your Book podcast. Don't forget about those support links so that I can get more and bigger authors onto the platform, so we can have more of these conversations. But even if you can't do that and you would like to just sit at home, what is free is to like, to subscribe, to ring the bell, and to think about how awesome I am and how great this podcast really is. Until next time, I am out of here.